everybody. Welcome to Teensy Vintage. This is Teresa. Today I am sharing with you my process for making a handmade journal. And you can see here I'm pulling out all of the various paper I'm going to use. I've trimmed all the little white edges off from the printer and I folded them, and now I'm just stacking them because I'm going to sew them together into a signature. And a signature is just a grouping of pages. That's all you need to know. So yeah, right here I'm just figuring out what's going to go in this little journal. This is the soft cover interior journal. It goes inside of the hardcover, which is that silver book behind it over there on the left of your screen. And basically I'm putting in and pulling out pages until it looks right, and then I'm going to clip them together so they hold on. This particular journal was a commission. It's for a student who was doing her thesis on this particular Czech egg, which is in Kansas. It looks really cool. The egg is huge. It's the world's largest Czech egg. Woo! If I ever get over to Kansas, I will definitely go and drive by and take a look because it looks cool. That said, I didn't have a lot of Czech type materials to put in here, so I went online and I found some pictures of the egg itself. And I also bought a kit of journal pages, which were Czech inspired. Unfortunately, those particular pages were AI created and really looked it. As in, some of the little animals had 5 legs, or, the people had no arms, or whatever it was. Yeah, crazy shit like that. So, now I'm going to make sure everything is lined up. It all fits. The pages are in the order that I want them to be in. I'm going to take out anything that, just didn't work. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, that's perfect. And then it's like, oh, not next to these other pages. Sometimes I need to turn pages around. You never know. There's an oddball purple page in here. I tried to go with the theme of red as my main color, since the egg in question is black, white, and red. So I used a lot of red, but I also complemented it with, a dark blue color and white. So yeah, the cover is from an online artist, and she makes beautiful papers. So I cut that out and put that in there. Um, you can see that on the cover. That's an old book of aluminum strength equations. Yeah. Oh boy. So anyway, here I am measuring this little piece of cardboard. That's going to be the new spine of the book. So what I'm going to do is poke holes in it with my owl, AWL, not an owl, an awl. And I'm going to match those up with the holes I poked in the signature. Now I'm going to pull out some bookbinding needles. These are really big needles that will fit the embroidery thread, which is what I use. You can use bookbinding thread, you can use whatever you want. But I have a ton of embroidery thread, so I use it in these projects. Plus, it's pretty and it's blue, so it matches this interior image. So I'm mixing a dark academia or a vintage academia with this Czech theme. So it's got a little bit of both. So I'm honoring the egg and I'm honoring the student that this book is for. And this student should have already received this book. I believe she defended her thesis a couple weeks ago. So congratulations to her on graduating and finishing all of her paperwork. I hope she enjoys this journal. I enjoyed making it. Now I'm just tying off the string, making sure it is taut but not too tight. I don't want it to snap. We just want to make sure it's secure. And then the next step is to insert this new signature into the hardcover book. Yeah. So this book, yeah, I just cut out the text block, and I'll use that in other projects. And now I'm going to glue in this new signature, which is going to be the handmade journal. And I'm using some Tombow liquid glue. This stuff, is kind of new to me. It's a good glue, but it is a little on the gloppy side. It's definitely a liquid glue, and I think I just wasn't very used to using such a liquidy glue. Most of the glue I like is either a glue stick or the art glitter adhesive, which, a little goes a long way with that stuff. So here I am, I'm putting a couple paper towels. I just want to make sure that, things don't get glued down in the wrong way. So while I'm waiting for all of this to dry, just gonna make sure everything is in there nice and good. And again, looking at everything, eyeballing it to make sure that nothing is sticking out and everything is in the place I want it to be in. And it looks good. So now we're going to use some scrapbook paper to make the end pages, so the inside of the hardcover. Oh, and here's my first mistake, y'all. So it's not the end of the world. It's not great. I'm going to fix it later, but holy cow. Of course, there's just that little bit of glue. Anyway, it's okay. So now I'm going to make some measurements here and write down exactly how big this space is that I need to cover up with the scrapbook paper. And so what I'm doing is just making sure I've got enough to cover the white paper, the original paper, and the cardboard, just so it'll look pretty and smooth. As you can see, I got this paper on clearance, and the dummies at the store put the price tag on the paper instead of the back. Oh well, I'm just going to cut off a different part of the paper. Yay, 12 by 12 paper. Way bigger than I need. So now I'm going to make sure everything looks good, and I'm going to round the corners because two of those corners are rounded, and mark the top. And then I'm going to repeat the process for the back part. And again, just going to cut the paper that doesn't have the price tag on it. I think I bought that at Joann's. Way to go, Joann's. It's probably why you're going out of business. No, I'm kidding. They're going out of business because, well, corporate greed. Yeah. If you're not sure what the heck I'm talking about, Google Joann's and private equity firms, and they will probably tell you the whole sordid story. Anyway, moving on. Now I want to glue down these beautiful papers into the journal. So I am not sure how I'm going to do this. I don't want to use that Tombow glue because it's too gloppy, and I imagine it'll give me, lumpy paper. So I'm going to use my art glitter glue here. And again, that's just the name. There's no glitter in this glue. I know. I didn't name it, but I love this glue. This video is not sponsored by Art Glitter. Anywho, so we're gonna make sure that's nice and evenly glued down, and then I got out the wrong glue stick. I have two of them. One's new, one's old. I want to use up the old one, and we're going to use our trusty Oohoo to glue down the rest of this paper. And we're going to smooth it out with our little plastic doohickey. And oh yes, look at that. It looks good. And now we're going to do the back side. Now it looks like the back was just a little bit too big. No problem. Better to be too big than too small. All I got to do is cut off a little bit. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to put down my art glitter glue again and use, yeah, there we go. And just gently press it down. And that blue thing is a tool that comes with my scoring board where you can score a piece of paper. And basically that just presses a line into a page and it helps you fold it very cleanly and nicely. There we go. So now we have a beautiful interior. Okay, next part. This is all the little bits and bobs that I cut out. I'm not going to show you that whole process because frankly it's just tedious, but um, I cut out all these pictures, and you can see right there on top there is the egg in question, the world's largest Czech egg. Yeah, I've also got some tabs, and there is some of that paper that I mentioned that was disappointing. Good thing it was only $2, but bad thing, man, you're gonna put out a product. For the love of Pete, put out a nice digital product. Now that I know you don't really do that, I'm never gonna buy anything from you again. I don't even remember your name, so anyway, just do your due diligence when you're buying printable digital papers online and see if you can see the details and read the reviews. Um, Now, I cut out this piece of paper and I don't remember why. Um, I don't think I ended up using it, which is too bad, but that's okay. I have a sister print on the cover of the book itself. So now I'm just going through and gathering things, seeing what will fit, what will work. Now it's time to start putting in pockets and little tuck spots and adding ephemera. And this is something I printed off on a piece of cardstock, light cardstock, and I'm going to use it as a pocket. So we're going to put a little notch in the top so it's easy to get things in and out of the pocket. And of course, on everything, I'm going to zhuzh the edges with some vintage photo in Tim Holtz's Distress Oxide ink, which is probably my favorite ink pad. You can see how worn it is. But it just gives a nice aged look to everything, and it gets rid of all those white edges around the paper that you're using. So now I'm trying to figure out where I want to put this. And I thought about putting it right inside, but I was like, no, they're too pretty. I'm going to leave them alone. So I've got some double-sided tape here, and that is what I'm using to adhere this pocket to the page. Now I'm going to pull out my little box of bits and bobs, and I've got those organized by color because it is just so easy. If I know I need blue things or red things or green things, I just go grab my little color-coded box. And there we go, adding some more blue to this page. You can see I've got a sheet of vellum next to this red cover. And I like the vellum page because one, it just gives a little bit of a gauzy, dreamy feeling to your journal. And two, it's just a nice touch, I think, to put in your journal. So I try to add a vellum sheet when I can. And here I'm just adding in some larger journaling cards. And this is just stuff that is visually appealing, looks good in a little pile in a pocket. And the recipient of this journal, she can write on the back of it or add photos or whatever she wants to do. So we're going to tuck in a photo of the egg, and we're going to look for some red ephemera here. And I'm just pulling out stuff that catches my eye, things that look like they kind of go with the theme, whatever works. This tag I liked, so I'm going to punch a hole in that, and I'm actually going to add a little grommet to the top, make it real fancy. Um, and we'll pick a blue grommet just to keep the theme together. I've got my crocodile there, and that is going to help me um, kind of crimp the grommet so that it stays put. And I've got this bright blue ribbon, which I really love. Just adds a pop of color, a little texture, and there it goes, right in that pocket. Okay, now we've got our next page. Got a little tiny teapot. I'm just going to glue it onto the page just to kind of break up this pattern and add some more stuff to the top. So the rest of this video is mostly me adding tickets and tags and all this good stuff to the pages. And a lot of what I'm going to add at the beginning here, I'm going to add old tickets to the top, turn them into tabs. And then I've got some actual tabs that I'm going to add to the side of the pages. The tabs don't actually mark anything in an organizational sense, but I like to put them in because they just look cool. Um, and there's another picture of the Czech egg. I'm going to turn it into a little tuck spot here at the bottom of this page. So yeah, you can do some journaling on this page, and there's little goodies to discover, which is part of the fun of these handmade journals. They're full of stuff, And I think part of the fun of them is finding out what that stuff is. It's like a little treasure book, you know? I've got this set of tickets here. I'm going to punch out the holes so it looks a little more authentic. These are all reproduction vintage items, which is nice because you know what? If I mess it up, I probably have another one somewhere. You know, they're not so precious. Um, I do sometimes put actual vintage items in my journals. Just depends on what it is. But yeah, most of them are reproduction. And that way, you know, if you lose it or if something happens to it or you start writing on it and you know, have scribbled out a bunch of words and you hate it, you can just start over on a different piece. It's not the end of the world. And I'm even now swapping things out. I'm going to swap out this little stack of books image with that ticket. Just 'cause, you know, I'm going to do an interior cover. And of course, on this one, I'm going to use the actual egg itself. I thought about using the egg on the front, but I was so taken with that beautiful butterfly image. I was like, oh, we're going to go with this one. It just had that lovely Eastern European folk kind of vibe going on. But yeah, and this, you know, these are from the website for the Czech egg, and I hope they don't mind me using them too much. It's the best I could do on, well, short notice, and I was not able to get to Kansas to take my own photos. So I borrowed some of theirs. Here I'm looking through some clusters that I made a long time ago. And these are just clusters of vintage tickets and other items. And I just really liked this one. It had a little bit of a curl to it, so I'm trying to uncurl it. But basically, it's a pre-made cluster. It looks cool, and now all I have to do is glue it, and it's good to go. Look at that. Look at all that detail. Yes, good stuff. All right, so that ties together our two themes that we've got going. We've got our Czech egg theme, and we've got our vintage theme. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do going forth here is to let y'all enjoy. I'm going to put a little music track over this, and you can watch as I cut and glue all kinds of goodies into this book. As always, thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed, hey, right now is a great time. Hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all next time.